spooky ghost stories from the beach. Just kidding. That's putting Rachel on the spot to tell some awkward, wonderful things this night.
No, I don't think I know. I don't think I know enough spooky things.
Yeah. Well, there was a glove as we were walking out
Oh, yes.
to our profile line, which is the spot that we come back to every summer and winter to monitor the same spot every time. We have special permission tonight, of course, to be out here at Kopachuck State Park.
Many thanks to the Parks Department.
There was a hand poking out of the sand that really caught me off guard, and was like, and it was a glove.
It was a glove. Thank goodness, only a glove.
And that was just.
It would be a much different video if we had found an actual hand here tonight.
It would be a different night of science. A little murder mystery, I don't know.
Well, we're out here with our esteemed crew waiting for the tide to go out. So they've got all their gear. We're getting ready to head down, but the tide is low enough that I should be able to find some cool stuff. So I think we're gonna maybe walk. I might walk your line here. Go head out.
And as you do, of course, we like to notice how more life increases as you get closer to the water, and then it becomes sand.
And then it's sand, and then everything's under the ground.
Yeah. So.
But the tide is nice and low tonight. We should see some good stuff, so we'll walk along. It is very cold. It's about 36 degrees out, although it feels much colder. But since
the water's going to be warmer than the air.
The water is going to be way warmer than the air. But since it's not raining, I don't really care that it's that cold. I've got insulated boots and toe warmers, and got my gloves on, and nice bright headlamp. It's a new one, so I'm still getting used to it. It's got all kinds of bells and whistles, so apologies if I go dark or it's too bright or you can't see or anything like that. Thanks everybody for tuning in tonight. We are, this is one of our last nighttime programs of the year. We're kind of wrapping up all of our beach monitoring here, but hoping that we'll see some good stuff during the low tide. We are out at Kopachuck State Park, and you just kind of see the outline of Cuts Island across the way there. And then of course there's all various homes and people with their Christmas lights up along the water. Love to see that festive bright lights, although I do wonder a little bit what all the wildlife thinks about it. We heard a handful of geese earlier. They may make an appearance here. You can hear them easier than you can see them. They stay just kind of outside of the realm of our headlamps. But I'm walking down to about the positive 1 foot tidal height. That's what our team has marked out here. And we are looking at already several animals. So we've got these aggregating anemones. They don't look like much, of course, when the tide is out, but when the tide is high, they actually do resemble flowers, which they are named for. They are a beautiful pink tentacled species with kind of green, and they're kind of everywhere. Here's one. And there's my finger for some scale. So they're pretty small animals, and they're one of the most fascinating animals. I just love them because they are so, they're so weird. They're so bizarre. Okay, so here's one that's kind of out, so we can see it a little bit, see more of its body. And you see where it's really pale on kind of the lower section? That's the part that would be normally underneath the sand. And then the green part on the very top is where they have pigments, as well as a photosynthetic algae called zooxanthellae that lives in their body tissues. They have a symbiotic relationship with different algae, and that allows them to kind of be kind of solar powered a little bit, which is really amazing. And then there are other things that are strange about them too. Let me see if I can find, I was hoping I could find one that was in the process of splitting open, but here's two that are close together, and it's very likely that these two are clones of one another. The original anemone was on the rock and got big enough and decided to split into two, and they really do just like stretch and split. Here's another two right close together, and they're called aggregating anemones because they do quite often kind of pile together. And now we're at the water's edge, and unfortunately it's a little bit windy, so it's going to be hard to see into this murky water, but it does look like it clears up a little bit out there, so I might be able to show you some interesting things. we get down to the lower tidal heights, and we know we're approaching those areas because we start to see the green algae. This is Ulva lactuca. Sea lettuce is its common name, and I just think it's a great one. Very fitting of its lettuce-like appearance. It's only 1 cell thick, and when it's broken apart and tears, the individual pieces can continue to live. Also have some different red algae here, which are found at kind of the middle intertidal zone and lower. This one's a really beautiful one when it's underwater. And it doesn't look like much when it's low tide, but at high tide, when it's covered by the water and drifting in the waves, it's quite beautiful. Oh, here's a clam. Right here is a clam siphon. I'll sit real still and see if it'll get comfortable and kind of extend outward again. Although having my phone hovering right over the top of this clam is probably not the best position to be in, because I might just get squirted, but that's okay. Clams are filter feeders. And we have an abundance of species of clams here. At this beach in particular, it's a pretty popular place to go clamming. Oh, I can hear the clams. You probably can't. I don't think my microphone on my phone is that good, but the clams have the ability to pull water in through one hole and squirt water out through their other hole, their siphon, and then they will breathe through that. Oh, I got really excited for a second, and it's a piece of fern. Thought it was a sea slug. My brain is kind of programmed to pick up on what's interesting or weird or different about this environment, and terrestrial plants is something my brain picks up very easily. This is a huge boulder here. Apologies for the bad connectivity. We're just kind of in a not such a great location, unfortunately. But this big rock here is what we would call a glacial erratic. It was one that was left behind during the last ice age when the glaciers melted. They dropped all of these rocks that they were pushing around, many of them pushed down from Canada. This is a really, really large rock. I don't know if I can quite convey the scale here, but it's really, really big. And then we have our scientific marker here. This is a spot we know that this rock is not going to move, and so it provides a kind of a permanent spot for us to measure from to ensure that we're doing our beach monitoring in the same place every time. Oh, look, we've got a ton of shrimp in this puddle. These are little Sitka shrimp. They are a very common species to see intertidally here, and especially in the winter months, and especially at night. They're nocturnal, so when we get these low tides, they really get kind of concentrated in these little puddles. And they're just so fun to watch. Their little eyes glow. Well, they don't really glow. I guess they reflect. Oh, there is a fish in here. I'm gonna, right next to the pine cone, try to zoom in without getting too close to it. Sorry if that's not in focus any longer. That is a little tide pool sculpin, and it is here probably feasting on these little shrimp. They are a favorite food of many different fish species, and juveniles of fish and other animals like to kind of hug the shore because of the abundance of food, and these shrimp are just the perfect example of that. This little fish is very well camouflaged. You can see those kind of black bands running down along its back. That helps to kind of break up its shape so it's less noticeable to things that would want to eat it. Oh, there it moved. Might be taking advantage of the light to grab a snack here. Oh, that looks like there's two under there. I'm going to move. I got to take my glove off for just a moment. I'm going to move this little piece of bark here because I think there are two, maybe more, of those tide pool sculpin here. You can see there's one right next to one another. There is some variability in their coloration. So the front is darker and the one behind is a little more pale, but they still have that kind of saddled appearance. We'll go ahead and put their little piece of bark back, using that to hide from. Wow, the water is actually much warmer than the air temperature out here tonight. It is very cold. I'm not sure how long we're going to go live for, because I'm already freezing. Let's see what else we can see. The tide is going down pretty rapidly. We should be getting down to a much lower height. Oh, sorry. Okay, come on, headlamp. You got this. Oh, here we go. We've got a big red rock crab here. This is a gorgeous species, one of the larger crabs that we see here intertidally. This crab is really great at, it's going to demonstrate for us how they can bury down into the sand. They use their legs to kind of like liquefy the sand and squish their way down. And then their big pinchers will push against it, kind of forcing them backwards and then disguising their front as well. See how it tucks down like that? And this really nicely shows off the faces of the crabs. Basically, their bodies are organized in a way that they can be fully buried in the sand with nothing but their eyes and their mouth parts kind of protruding out. They can be fully underneath, totally protected and hidden, which is why it's a good idea when you're walking on the beach to go slowly and pay attention to where you're placing your feet. You would not want to step on this animal. Other animals that I'm noticing are right here. We've got some sand dollars. This is a really common echinoderm species. It's basically an urchin that's flattened out. And they are one of my favorite animals to find, and they've been quite popular. We had a video on TikTok from our last low tide swing that's got 8.7 million views, I think. Just crazy viral. And a lot of people had no idea that these were animals. They're more familiar with the shells or the test that's left behind, their hard skeleton that remains after the animal has died. And if you want to check that out, that's on our TikTok channel. Our username is Harbor Wildwatch. Here's another one here. And there's another. There's so many on this beach. I actually have to be very careful where I step. Oh, I was hoping we would see one of these tonight. This little slimy, fluffy thing is a type of nudibranch. This is a Shaggy Mouse nudibranch, one species of sea slug that eats those aggregating anemones that we saw earlier. And they are really only seen in the winter months around here. So by about March or April, they move into deeper water and we don't see them anymore. But during the cooler months, they come up into the intertidal zone to lay their eggs, which if we see some, they will look like a little gelatinous doily, kind of a little coil of stretchy, stringy white eggs. So let's see if we can find some of those. That would be a really fun thing to show off here tonight. Oh, it's cold. I apologize for the wind. This location, we're pretty unprotected. And the wind just comes right off from the water, so there's bound to be quite a bit of noise. Here's a bunch of broken sand dollars. This will become food for many different animals, that red rock crab being one of them. And the shrimp that we saw here is what the skeleton or the test of the sand dollar looks like. You can see that kind of sea star pattern on them, hints to their vestigial origins, their ancestors, the sea stars. On the underside, we can see their mouth in the center is open and exposed. And then right here near the edge of their shell, you can also see their butt. And a live sand dollar will never show you that. So if you flip over a sand dollar, you're not sure if it's alive or dead. If you can see their mouth, that hole, it's dead. It's a goner. If it's still covering the mouth with its spines, then it's definitely still alive. Got lots of oyster shells here. Plenty of clam shells as well. Our low tide tonight is very, very late. I want to say it's like at 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning. So we're not going to go live that long. In fact, I'm already starting to feel quite cold. My fingers are not working very well. Excuse me, but let's walk along and see what else we can see. If you're just joining us and you have questions, you can post those in the comments. It's hard for me to read and walk and talk at the same time and not step on sea creatures, but I will do my best. But I do love to have comments from where you are watching from. So we're out at Kopachuck State Park in Gig Harbor, Washington. But if you want to share where you're watching, we love to know that information. A lot of our friends are locals, and they've been following us for a long time. Some others of you are from farther away, and that's just fascinating information to have. It's kind of the one big bonus from this pandemic has been the ability to connect with people from far across the globe through social media. Kitsap. Yeah, you're close. We're in the process of looking forward to 2022 and taking a look at the tide charts because we can predict those, the tides out a number of years. And so we're looking and trying to set our schedule and figuring out what beaches we're going to go to for some more in-person programming. So stay tuned for that in January as we announce our kind of summer beach schedule. Ooh, it is cold. I wish my boots were tall enough that I could just walk right out there. But I think I would get splashed and wet. And that is a bad combination in the wintertime. Even in the summertime, it's very easy to get hypothermia here in our waters. The water temperature tonight is about 45 degrees. And the air temperature is about 36, 35 or so. It's cold. I like walking this section of the beach because it is mostly sand, and that means the animals are beneath the surface. So I really only have to watch out for things like buried crabs and sand dollars, which are pretty easy to spot. I've got lots of experience finding those animals, and so I kind of know where I can safely step. But that's part of the reason why it's not always the steadiest of filming jobs, is because I'm looking down like... You guys just see what the camera points at, but like my feet. I'm not walking in like a straight line. I walk kind of like all over the place, trying not to step on creatures. Here's some evidence of animals that are pretty active in this area. This is a moon snail shell. I can tell from the size of it and kind of the roundness of the shell here that this is from a moon snail. And that one probably was broken open by gulls. So seagulls, when the moon snails are small, will pick them up and fly real high and then drop them on the rocks to eat them. When they're really large, the only thing that really eats them is a red rock crab. So that big red crab with those huge pinchers is able to snap through their shell and get the snail inside out. I'm not sure if our tide's going to be low enough to see any moon snails today, although this is a very popular beach for them because it's a very popular beach for our moon snails' favorite food. They love to eat clams, and they eat about a clam every 4 days or so. I read that somewhere. I don't know how accurate that is, but that sounds about right. They're snails. They're not very fast moving. It takes a while for them to track down a clam and then to get the clam out. And the way that they do that is with a radula. This tongue is kind of the closest thing that we have to a radula. It's technically a proboscis, I guess. But yeah, their tongue sticks through the shell of the clam and damages the adductor muscle, the muscle that holds the clam closed. And then they can eat the clam with that same proboscis. They also have a hydrochloric acid in their saliva, which helps to kind of soften up that clamshell. The water's a little more clear here, and I'm just looking for things like hermit crabs or kelp crabs. Although when we get a lot of strong currents, those animals tend to go deeper in the water so they don't get really kind of blown about in these waves. If you're a small animal, even a small wave like these could knock you around. Let's travel up the beach a little bit and see what we can see. We'll kind of go over this sandy section, get to some rocks. And then I think I might wrap up. I can't feel my ears anymore. It's pretty chilly out here. Did anybody have snow at their house? I woke up to snow this morning, which was kind of a surprise because I don't think I saw that in the forecast. But it's looking like we might have another bunch of cold weather later in the week, so we can expect some more snow. So now we're definitely in the spot where we'd start to see lots more sand dollars. Many of them are buried just below the surface, and you can see this kind of shell debris on the surface. So if we look closely at that, a lot of that is broken sand dollars, broken barnacles, and clam shells. And we can compare that to the kind of silica type sand beneath it. Yeah, lots of sand dollars here. This is where I want to be careful where I step. A group of sand dollars, I think, should be called a purse, because that's what I want in my purse, is lots of dollars. It's really, the sand really changes. Where you can start to see these kind of ripples in the sand surface is places where you get a lot of water current moving across. This is very similar to what we see on like our ocean beaches. But walking, it's actually, I don't know if you guys can tell, it's quite mushy. I feel like I'm gonna sink in a little bit. And then we get to the rocks up here where there's a bit more permanent substrate for animals to attach to. And we should be back in the zone where we'll start to see more anemones. So here we go. We've come kind of full circle here. Anemones, more barnacles, more little shrimps. All right, and I have walked far away from my group. So rather than signing off with them and saying goodbye as they're getting started with their beach monitoring, I think I will just wrap up here. Friends, if you want to come join me over on TikTok, we're going to go live there in just a moment as well. And then we're going to call it a night because it's cold. Thanks everybody for joining us out here. It was super fun to have, come on, headlamp. You can do it. Okay, now I'm just flashing all of you. I have like, nope, I can't do it. Okay, I was gonna turn around so you guys could see me, but it's too bright. So here I am, proof I was out here. Thanks for watching, everybody. We're gonna wrap things up. Head over to TikTok if you want to do a little bit more of the same kind of. The tide is still going low, but thanks for joining us. Have a happy holidays if we don't see you virtually before the end of the year. So take care, everyone.